Today on The Big Story.
We always correlate food as a reward mechanism, which is wrong. If your exams are over, you get an ice cream, or if you've done well, we go out for a pizza outing or whatever.
We've assigned values and virtues to certain foods, and we've, made some other foods like paap kar liya isko kha ke. Why do you think that is?
The science itself is hard to pin down and it's still evolving, that it leaves room for people to come and scare people about, oh, this you must not do, that you must not do.
Is non-vegetarian protein better than vegetarian protein?
I'm just gonna cut this part and forward it to all my WhatsApp groups.
The views expressed in this podcast are the speaker's own. The Quint neither endorses nor is responsible for them.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third episode of The Big Story. This is me, Prateek.
And this is Anjali.
And today we are going to talk about...
the one thing that people can't stop talking about ever since the beginning of mankind. And that is food. But more importantly, we're talking about what is inside our food. That is nutrition and how should you be looking at food? How are we looking at food? And do we really need to change anything?
Clearly, I am not the best person to talk about food, and neither are you. So who do we have on our chat today?
So we have 3 guests this time around. So our first guest today is Krish Ashok. And if you've been scrolling on your Instagram feeds lately, you might see him around. And he is one of the biggest myth busters around food and nutrition on Instagram currently. Anything that you believe, that you've been told in fact, is bad for your health, be it microwaves, be it air fryers, be it salt, sugar, anything and everything. This guy will tell you what is the right way to be thinking about these foods. And you'll probably learn a lot just by one scroll on his feed.
And along with him, we have Dr. Priyanka Rohatgi. She is the chief nutritionist at Apollo Hospitals. She is from Bangalore, and she's like an overall smart person when it comes to food and nutrition. Matlab, she's just amazing when you talk to her about food and nutrition, and that's why we have her on chat. Other than that, the third person is
a newbie on this podcast as well as at our company.
As well as in our lives.
In our lives, yes. We have Kriti Ghai, who is our newly joined intern.
Yeah. I'll tell you a chota story of how we, decided to include her on the show. We were just, while producing this episode, we were chatting कि अच्छा किसे रखना चाहिए, किसे नहीं रखना चाहिए. And Kriti was a part of that conversation, and she really had really interesting insights and anecdotes about her share of, fad diets and all of that. And I'm like, यार तुम हमें बता रहे हो, आ जाओ, mic पे आ जाओ, and let us talk about it.
सबको बताओ.
So that's how she's here. And without wasting any more time, Anjali,
yes.
Let us, पहले ऐसा करते हैं, before we, call up our guests, let us have a chat with Kriti.
Yeah, and I feel like Kriti will really be able to tell us, break down what goes inside the mind of a person when they are obsessing over their food.
Yeah, and especially of your generation, people of your generation and not my generation.
Yeah. बस यही कर लो. Divide the world into generations.
We are all.
Thank you.
We are divided by generations, united by terrible food habits.
Nice one.
Hi, Kriti.
Hi, Kriti.
Hi guys, how are you?
We're doing great.
How are you? We are good. Okay, so...
why do you think you are here, Kriti? Do you think you've been held hostage?
The honest answer is because I'm an intern and I couldn't say no to my bosses.
Wow. Anjali काट देना इसको.
इतना honesty नहीं चाहिए.
नहीं. I think I'm here because I think I rightfully represent the harmful relationship a lot of Gen Z may have with food or nutrition, because I personally have had a very tumultuous relationship with food and nourishing your body and nutrition. So yeah, maybe I'm here to represent that.
So what are you hoping to, get from this conversation? What are your biggest questions from our guests, Krish and Dr. Priyanka?
I think from Krish and Dr. Priyanka, the thing is, one of the biggest phenomena I feel like has started happening since COVID is that a lot of these fad diets such as keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, even if they are not medically viable for every body out there and every person out there, a lot of people try to, give it sort of a medical backing to convince you and to convince themselves that no, this will work for me and this is healthy. So I think just understanding how to deal with that misinformation or that idea from the doctor and Krish is something I want to understand.
As someone who might have fallen into...
Definitely have.
Acha, for our listeners, take us through all of these diets that you've been through and what are these diets?
So like keto is supposed to be, I can eat all the cheese I want, and if I'm a non-vegetarian, I can eat all the non-veg I want, and I can have pizzas and burgers, but they just won't have carbohydrates, but it'll taste good. So that's how we perceive keto. And also you will lose a lot of weight very fast.
Okay.
That's how keto is perceived. Paleo, I'll be very honest, I don't think any one of us know what paleo is. I don't think we know what paleo is. There's some, there's like this gentle sort of rumor and there's this understanding that isn't paleo like what we ate when we were nomads? I'm not kidding. That's how we've perceived
Okay.
paleo as well.
But wasn't that keto? Because keto is a meat-based diet and a protein-based diet.
No, keto is a meat-based diet and it's a protein, but it's cooked.
Acha.
It's focused on not having carbs. Paleo is supposed to be about...
Paleo is like full kacha.
Yes, exactly. And in terms of intermittent fasting, I think intermittent fasting is just an excuse for the younger generation to eat what they want, but just for 8 hours a day. And then they feel if they fast for 16, then they've just made up for it.
This is such a nice explanation of all of these diets. It's just an excuse. Okay, so what do you think is the biggest thing that is in between the young Indian youth and a good, healthy lifestyle?
People will probably think this answer is extremely cliche, but I genuinely think it's their mental health. And I think it's their mental perception of their physical health. The whole idea of wanting to look for a quick and easy solution or wanting to get rid of your excess fat or whatever it may be, or even going for a fat diet, it stems from a very genuine place. But then that genuine place of...
I heard wanting to get rid of your exes.
Is that another separate big story episode?
That is also a big story episode that happens between Pratik and his therapist.
Yes. Yeah, you were saying.
I think the ideas of body dysmorphia or your body image, they stem from how you've perceived your physicality and how to take care of your physicality. That's where the relationship with food sort of comes in. So I feel like today, the gap between my generation and a healthy lifestyle is not valuing relationship with food. So that's the gap that I feel personally exists between my generation.
Anjali, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel also there is a huge knowledge gap. People are thinking about food, but on a surface level. Thinking a lot about food, but on a surface level. And not exactly, they're focusing a lot on the ingredients without understanding what that ingredient does to your body. Because I feel like sometimes I don't even know what nutrients are in a particular ingredient.
I think human society has evolved much faster than human bodies, and because of that, the way we consume rewards of all kind, they have evolved so fast that it's getting so hard for our body to catch up. And now there's like a fundamental dichotomy between what our bodies are made for and what our current realities of our life is. And wo cheez, I think it has sent all of us in like a collective schizophrenia where we all want to know everything कि हम कैसे इस clock को थोड़ा set कर सकते हैं. And because of that, there is misinformation. And then what Kriti's point comes into play, कि because of all of this, confusion, there are things like body image issues and all of that, I would say. So it's like the software is so advanced, but the hardware isn't compatible.
Deep.
क्या बात है?
Very
Analogies के लिए आपको एक award मिलना चाहिए.
We shall start a big story award for the best analogies.
I will compete very hard for this one. All right, so इस conversation से हमें ये तो समझ गया कि we have a lot of questions.
Yes.
And people who have experimented with food, people like me who have barely experimented with food, all of us have a lot of questions.
And person like me who wants to experiment.
So I think we can now call in our guests and begin this discussion. Shubharam kare.
For that, let's pay some bills. We'll talk to our guests, Krish Ashok and Dr. Priyanka Rohatgi, but right after this small break. Pakka.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Priyanka, Kriti, and
hello.
Krish. It is great to have you all here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us here.
How are you feeling? How is your day going? Let's start with Krish.
I mean, it's not a bad day. Actually, it's Chennai, so it's starting to be tipping from the sort of cool summer to the hot summer. We only have one season here. And otherwise, I think things are actually pretty good here.
Okay, so today in this chat, we are basically going to talk about food habits and nutrition and how a younger India, the modern 2023 ka India, looks at food and how it, meshes with our lifestyles, right? So let us jump straight into the conversation with Dr. Priyanka.
Hi.
Hi, hello. Doc, what are the most common things that people come to you for when it comes to nutrition?
See, everybody knows that you don't gain weight overnight, but everybody's looking for that magic pill to just lose weight overnight. And they feel that there's some mantra sitting down there which will just make you slim, trim, and very fit the very next day. So, mostly, yes, people are really concerned about their weight. And I know that, when you do something wrong, you are yourself conscious about taking a wrong food habit or making that extra sleep deprivation for yourself or not hydrating with healthy drinks. So somewhere, but then you want a verification and a solution from somebody else.
And is this more recent that more and more people are coming to you with problems regarding weight, or would you say that more young people are coming to you than you had normally seen in your previous years of practice?
Post-COVID, yes, because people have become more sedentary compared to what they were earlier. And there are more health concerns that we are seeing, or maybe people are more health aware because they've seen how, immunity and one's lifestyle can really impact their behavior to a disease progression.
So, Doc, what do you think is the most basic definition of nutrition?
So, nutrition is, when you eat things which give you good nutrients and how your body assimilates it. And to make it more interesting, we have a certain way of handling the food in our body, which is called the gut microbiome, and it's very much genetic, lifestyle, and your overall activity level dependent. So if I eat watermelon vis-a-vis you eating watermelon, both our bodies can have a different repercussion to the same food. So it's how my body assimilates a certain food depending. I have a certain gut microbiome, a certain genetics, which is making my body behave in a certain way. So how I assimilate the nutrients is what is nutrition all about.
And you're saying a lot of it has to do with what's in your gut, like already what's in your gut. And
what's in your gut and what's in your mouth.
Yeah. Like as an addition to that, I'm assuming there is no, one size fits all solution to any sort of nutrition problem, right? But
absolutely.
Then why do you think, and this is where Krish can also jump in, why do you think we see so many like these blanket statements? Like we are going to have one section where just all of us are going to shoot myths at y'all and you will be like, okay, ye hota hai, ye nahi hota. So why do you think this culture is there ki ye cheez buri hai?
How do people make such generalized statements so casually, and why do they do it in the first place?
We have assigned values and virtues to certain foods, and we have made some other foods like paap kar liya isko kha ke. So why do you think that is?
It's because somewhere we've lost our balance.
Okay.
So if we go back to what we were eating, where eating out used to be very infrequent, which may not be the case relevant in today's scenario with both husband and wife working. But if we try and eat major part of the food as healthy choices, and then sometimes a little bit of indulgence the body can handle. But if our daily cooking is also most of the foods which are manufactured in plants vis-a-vis grown on a plant. So, natural versus processed. So that's where
I would want to cut you for a second. You said manufactured
in plants,
from a plant, in plants versus grown on a plant. So like, would you elaborate?
Like a factory setting where you pick up bags of food, like a packet of chips.
That kind of
processed foods.
Man.
Like manufactured in a processing plant rather than made on a plant.
We have our thumbnail title and all sorted. Thanks a lot for that. Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah.
We think we are modern in getting into globalization, and we've forgotten our basics of the food. If we go back, we can definitely strike that balance and follow moderation.
Yeah, if I could maybe add this particular thing, right? And I think, yeah, so the broader point about, I think, processed food, the growth of processed food, so essentially eating food that is largely tends to be devoid of fiber, right? That's primarily it, right? And high on sugar, high on salt. I don't think we have evolved to deal with that level of calorie and flavor density. Hyperpalatable, our brains can't. So that's one aspect of the whole thing. I think your specific point about why does everyone have an opinion? That I think there's it is a little bit slightly something more sociological about why there is so much misinformation and multiple theories about nutrition. And a lot less about certain other things. There's no debates and multiple people weighing in on, say, gravity, right, or thermodynamics.
Yeah.
That's sort of, in a sense. So I think we have to make this point that those are settled sciences. Nutrition, particularly for me, as I've been observing, right. So I started out focusing on really just flavor and cooking and the science of food. And then the problem is that 90% of my comments on Instagram would be, oh no, you're not supposed to use this. You're not supposed to use the microwave. You're not supposed to use this. I'm like, so it turns out that many people don't seem to be enjoying food, but really just having these random misconceptions about nutrition, and just the misinformation universe is so huge.
Yeah.
You have to remember that modern medicine is actually, effectively speaking in India, less than 100 years old, right? But people have been cooking and feeding each other for millennia, since the dawn of mankind.
Yeah.
So there is a ton of what we call traditional wisdom, traditional knowledge. My grandmother's teaching, their daughters and so on. So that knowledge has largely been kind of passed down. So, so the thing is that when you get to a doctor, there is already a problem.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? But food is something that you do well before that, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of traditional wisdom about avoiding chronic illnesses exist in all societies as part of just good eating habits, right? So the problem is that, one, as the doctor said, that everyone is unique.
Yeah.
Genetics plays a role. Gender plays a role. Your mood plays a role. Your stress, your lifestyle, sedentary, non-sedentary. So many variables that the science itself is hard to pin down, and it's still evolving, that it leaves room for people to come and scare people about, oh, this you must not do, that you must not do. And I think it is one of those spaces where everyone can come and become viral by saying something scary.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what is happening right now. And there's no easy way to go to a doctor. A doctor will actually take nuance and say, it's complicated. I can't give you a yes or no answer. I can't give you a medicine that can cause you to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's easy to scare you and say, if you eat this, you will get cancer. If you do this, you will get cancer, right? It's actually crazy. People don't realize that the number of plants that naturally have carcinogens is actually far higher than the tiny amount of, say, one preservative that you might use, which importance is moderation, as the doctor said, right?
Yeah.
If your diet actually is sort of eating what your grandmother ate, but accounting for the fact that in your grandmother's generation, people probably cycled 5 kilometers to their school and so on, and you are just sitting, and scrolling on WhatsApp all day or Instagram all day. I think you have to account for that. You have to appropriately reduce your caloric intake. And sometimes I think people don't want to do that. But instead, they want to find easier solutions. Okay, let me just avoid this one ingredient. Let me add this one ingredient. Let me eat turmeric water and it'll do some magic. They want those easy solutions, but the harder things to actually eat less. And that, in a sense, I think is this ecosystem of misinformation that's out there.
You talked about the ecosystem of misinformation, and you also talked about people getting scared by a lot of these misinformations which are presented as fact, right? So we have Kriti here, who has had her fair share of diets and her, journey with nutrition and all of that. So
she's had a roller coaster of a relationship with her food.
So Kriti, describe your relationship with food and nutrition.
That's a loaded question, but I think going off of what Sir just said, one thing that I really agree with is how many a times to make an unhealthy habit or lifestyle convenient for my generation or even the generation above me, we try to avoid certain food groups. For example, I've had a very long and difficult relationship with diets such as keto or intermittent fasting. And I completely agree with what you said, because somewhere I did not want to give up on eating a pizza or a burger. So I was just like, let me just remove the carbs from that, and then I can have as much cheese as I want.
As soon as Kriti said keto, I could see Chris's face light up. Yeah, continue, Kriti,
Because
please.
that we've had COVID, yes, but that epidemic of keto and paleo and intermittent fasting and 18 hours not eating, 16, like I've seen it all. I've seen everything.
And you've tried it
And
all?
I've tried it all. I have tried. I remember I have this hilarious story of when I went to college for the first time, and my roommate and I, we decided to do intermittent fasting together because we were eating dining food and it was extremely unhealthy. Every day we would start our fast like at 9 p.m. 10 p.m. I would see her with a tub of ice cream and she would finish it and she would go off to sleep. And then the next morning I would be like, Gauri, like I saw you were eating. She's like, no, I fasted. I fasted for 8 hours. So, just the things we tell ourselves to convince ourselves, I think that's something I really agreed with. And I think what I find very interesting, and I would like to ask you, sir, and I would also like to ask the doctor, many a times people try to take like unhealthy lifestyle choices and diets such as keto and give it sort of backing from like a medical professional or a doctor. And the thing is, that ultimately now if tomorrow I'm doing keto and I'm a little unsure because people are telling me it's unhealthy, but there is a medical professional who, is saying, no, you can do it and it's good for you. How do you combat that level of misinformation? Because you're supposed to trust that. So this is just a question I had.
Doctor, you want to go first?
Sure.
Then I will. Yeah.
So see, I would like to really comment on this. This is a pain point for us because we have so many Google doctorate patients who come to us, and they would have followers, and they would be following somebody who may be a quack. And since the following is so long, or they have some celebrity status, so they feel that it is absolutely right for me to do that. Now we need to understand we are all lay people. We are all middle class lay people. We do not have 2 hours of gymming time. We don't have a personal trainer or a personal dietitian, or we don't have very fancy kind of fruits available on our platter, or a magic pill imported multivitamin which is there. So given the scenario, if we try to make drastic changes in our eating habit, we are somewhere affecting our gut microbiome. I'd like to elaborate a little bit there. We have close to 3 trillion bacteria in our body, and 85% of it is good bacteria. So this is going to give us immunity to prevent a lot of diseases. Now, when we go on crazy patterns of keto diet, which has barely any carbohydrate, our good bacteria does not get the prebiotic or the carbohydrate to thrive on. And then after, when we achieve whatever goal of keto we wanted to 16 kgs or 20 kgs, when we try to restart, our body is not able to absorb those nutrients well, and we get into irritable bowel syndrome, episodes of constipation followed by diarrhea, and so on and so forth. So we've played very badly with our gut health, and it's very difficult to get that back. In the bargain, we've also picked up low immunity, so we've developed allergies and intolerances to a lot of foods which we were happily eating otherwise. So these crazy fashionable words like gluten-free, lactose-free, for not a medical reason, but for intolerances which are interpreted otherwise, come into picture.
Exactly.
Intermittent fasting to some extent is scientific, but should be done in the right way. So people just want to have that period of fasting, but don't follow with exercise. So when you don't exercise, you lose all your muscle mass. You start looking more sicker at the weight loss rather than fitter. So if you're really looking at fat loss, you also need to get into fitness. You also need to look fit. Your body has to be more strong in terms of its immunity and other things. So I strongly believe we should not play around. We are not guinea pigs to experiment on ourselves. If you want to follow anybody on the social media, please look at their credentials, look at their work, their scientific backing. Have they really been prescribing, publishing papers? Do they have some evidence to what work they're doing? Rather than just looking, yeah.
And doctor, would you say that for anyone who is planning on following a certain regime or a diet, they should have like a medical expert who they've vetted their process through, rather than maybe trying to make one for themselves or following one borrowing a regime from someone else?
Absolutely. See, people like to follow their friends or relatives who've got some quick results. But your body is not the same, and that relative or friend may not be qualified.
Right.
So, you can't experiment on yourself. So, go for a qualified medical professional or a dietitian and then become a guinea pig if you really want to experiment.
One critical point that she makes about the tendency for people to believe either just their friends, their social network, and influencers is particularly dangerous when it comes to nutrition and health, right? I'm someone who's sort of been on social media for the longest time, right? So since 2007, I've seen how information flows happen, and a lot of my work in my day job in software, etc., also sort of touches upon behavior science in terms of what kind of behaviors do people exhibit online, how do information flow, how do trust networks get built, and so on. And this is particularly important because what I find is that we need to really diagnose why people who are actual experts don't have a loud enough social media voice while absolute quacks do. So this is a huge problem, right? And it's not as easy as saying Dr. Priyanka needs to spend all her precious time on Instagram. I don't think that's the solution, right? Because her time is better spent actually dealing with patients than actually just sitting and debunking stuff on social media, right? On the other hand, I think another interesting element to Kriti's point. One of my favorite exercises is that when people say, "Hey, you know what? I believe this because I found a white paper that agrees with what I say." I said, you give me a claim and I will find you 10 papers that agree with you and 10 papers that disagree with you.
Yeah.
That's not how science works, right? The average person is not really good at reading science papers. And medical papers are filled with a lot of jargon and you need years and years of training to be able to understand them, right? And again, people don't pay attention that many of these tests may be on rats.
Yes.
Many of these tests may be on, in another country. Again, we are all different. Genetics is different. Right?
Yes.
That's the reason why we have qualified doctors who can add their practical experiences of dealing with patients and update themselves with the science when necessary, right? So it's equally important to tell people that please don't interpret some random white paper you read, right? Because you wouldn't know how to read the paper in the first place, right? So this again is the part of the problem with many of these fad diets and this particular superfood ingredient. This is amazing, right? So there will be a bunch of papers that will say this is amazing, and a bunch of papers that will say that this will cause liver toxicity. And you'll be like, how do I figure it out? But a doctor can tell the difference between, well, in what conditions, in what concentration, in what situation, right? And all of that matters. And that's why you need, for people to we need to improve the public trust in medical professionals. That again kind of goes back to the fact that you don't really see a medical professional till you have a serious problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like we're actually teaching basics of what is a balanced meal in school. We don't teach kids to cook, right? For starters, right? Only home science people learn to cook, right? And so it is actually, so in a sense, I think basic knowledge of nutrition and preventive healthcare in the sense has such a tremendous effect on reducing the workload when you actually get to actual problems, right?
Doctor, he just mentioned that, if you have to visit a doctor, it's probably too late. Now, do you think there is an actual lack of screenings on time? I don't have regular checkups. I don't know what's happening with my body. If XYZ vitamin is less or more, only if some test is recommended to me, that's when I know. So do you think that there is also a lack of access for all of these screening measures which can probably detect a lot of these changes when they are at a, corrective stage?
Yes, definitely. So we are screening less and we are also seeing a lot of population with denial.
Okay.
That, if I once or twice my blood pressure reading or my blood sugar reading was high, that was one random episode in my life. Maybe I had jalebis that day. But you don't realize that, the body is indicating something and people generally sit on symptoms and the symptoms are quite generic. And they say, doctor ke paas jayenge to wo kuch na kuch to nikal hi denge.
Yeah.
So, better avoid that kind of... So I think it is needed that we test ourselves because so many investigations are available which can actually pick up pre-diabetes, which can actually pick up liver health quite early. So, that's something that since it's available, we should make use of it. We know we are not in the best of our lifestyle.
Actually, I wanted to sort of address the other end of this, which is with the, like you mentioned, after COVID, people are looking at their health more seriously. But at the same time, we're seeing a sort of orthorexia or like an obsessive need to eat healthy that has come up. So have you noticed that as well, where people are, getting really scared for things that maybe do not require so much obsession?
What's the term called? Orthorexia.
Orthorexia, yeah. So they are into that notion that they have to eat very, very, very healthy, and they've auto-restricted a lot of stuff.
Oh, 100%.
So they would eliminate milk, they would eliminate all dairy products. They would say gluten is causing the inflammation in my body, so let me get rid of all the wheat. So you're not realizing what other micronutrients you're missing out. Magnesium, potassium, those are very important in the body.
And also simple. There's also an economic angle to this, right?
Exactly.
You obsess over these things. You're actually also increasing your the amount of money you spend, right? So you're like, no, I will only eat A2 milk, A2 cow ghee, which is 2,000 rupees a kg, and so on.
Almond milk.
Right, exactly. And you're like, your focus should be actually to pay attention to the overarching amount of fat you have in your diet, rather than figuring out whether it's cheap ghee or expensive ghee. And then you actually mess up somewhere else, meaning that you go cheap elsewhere, and where it might actually make a big difference. Yeah.
And when you're protein deficient, you clearly have sugar cravings. So your body physiologically indicates, and then you think, I've done very good. I've eaten a very skimpy breakfast. I've skipped my lunch. So I deserve this chocolate for myself. And then the portions can be as bad as Kriti was telling us.
That happens. No, but doctor, like you spoke about how there's a lot of terminologies used, such as gluten-free or sugar-free or almond milk and oat milk, and just a lot of these general perceptions. Do you feel like the rise of these just expensive products and also the rise of social media has led to a lot of people just diagnosing themselves without even trying to go forward and get a medical opinion, themselves deciding that, like you said, the inflammation in my body is because I probably have a gluten intolerance or a carb intolerance, or normal milk, I'm lactose intolerant. So do you feel like people have started misdiagnosing themselves a lot more too?
That's very true, because if you go to anybody, you meet somebody after 5-6 days also, they're judging you. You've lost weight, gained weight. Say, for example, gluten. Let's take that example. So people would like to go off gluten without realizing that it takes 21 days for the system to completely eliminate the gluten.
Right.
So you're not eating your rotis, but you're eating your biscuits, you're eating your pasta, your pizza, occasional intake of sandwiches. So, and then you say that, I'm not seeing the results, though I'm going on a gluten-free diet. And since you've compromised somewhere, you end up eating more elsewhere, which may be even more unhealthy. So,
even your asafoetida will have gluten, by the way. So.
Exactly.
Yes.
So sit down and ask yourself, what is it that I'm looking for? Is this something that really, gave me a deadly disease that I really have to be enemies to that and eliminate it completely? If there's a basis to it that you lack the enzyme and, there is some interference in your metabolism, take a test, understand it, and then eliminate it.
Now, I have a, devil's advocate question for all of y'all. As soon as we get some sort of advice from somebody, there is this one phenomena that I am noticing so much, which is the "but it works for me" phenomena, where people will say that they tried something, and like in a lot of cases with me, I have seen a friend of mine, he is like, okay, I went on keto, I cut sugar, I cut eating after 6, वो 4-5 उसने अपनी list बताई. And I could see a difference between, his weight then and now. And then he's like, so it works for me. And like, how do I deal with that feeling of, okay, yaar, iske saath to ho raha hai, should I try it? Malab, it's confusing for me.
No, this is sort of like a very basic, also a high school. One of the things that we often don't teach is actually critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
So critical thinking in general requires us to kind of teach not just statistics, but also some basic inference mechanisms to prevent people from confusing correlation with causation, right? Understanding the distinction between anecdotal experiences and aggregate average experiences, right? I'll give you a very classic example. By the way, there is a strong correlation between eating ice creams and drowning in the swimming pool.
Okay.
Right? So on the face of it, you're like, oh, okay, how does that work? It's because it's very simple. In the US, ice creams, mostly people eat in summer. And turns out it's also in summer when they go hit the swimming pool. Simply statistically speaking, You're going to eat more ice creams, more people go to swim, more people will drown. That's just how it works, right? These were not related, right? But the problem is that I think the way we sometimes, the clickbait headlines that get generated in the media and so on, is that sometimes people don't have the cognitive tools to be able to distinguish these things. So which is why I think we need to drill into people's heads that when it comes to medicine and health, it worked for me is the worst kind of evidence. It says absolutely nothing. It worked for you, great, that's it. One, you have no idea whether that is what cured it. You have no way of knowing.
And why it worked for you.
And there's no control, right? See, the whole, how drugs are actually tested by taking a control group, not giving them the drug, and this group where it's a double blind test, right? That is how hard it is to establish that a drug works. So you absolutely saying that it worked for me is the worst kind of evidence. And I think we need to teach high school kids that that's the worst kind of evidence you should generally accept for anything.
No, we see it in the clinical trials also when we give a set of people the drug and a set of people the placebo. And the placebo group comes and tells us, oh, I felt so good. It was so nice. Please continue. and we know that, we've double blinded them and we've not given them anything. So it's the psychology.
Yeah. And you can't tell them either. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your reaction at that time if somebody comes with a placebo and he's like, oh, it works for me, it's a wonder
Wonderful.
drug?
Let's now switch over to the good lifestyle and get the natural drug rather than, a pill.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interestingly, we see a lot of penetration in the suburbs also. So we were doing the study which has been going on for the last 15 years, which is one of the biggest epidemiological study called the Pure Study, where from suburbs of Rajasthan and Jaipur, we picked up a lot of very small houses where the house lady used to do everything, right from sweeping, mopping and everything, and they were really, really fat. So, she says, main to pure din I'm slogging, I wash my own. And you look at the square feet of the house, it is like 600 square feet. So even if sitting in this chair, if I keep dancing the whole day for 24 hours also, I don't burn the calories. And the nutritional inadequacy of eating more carbs, more fat, no micronutrients, no vegetables, no fiber in your diet, low on protein. So this sort of gives you a good inflammatory mix of non-communicable diseases.
Yes.
Is it because they feel that the 5 rupee biscuit packet will make them fuller sooner
it won't.
Than an egg? Or like, how do they look at these two?
It's easy to eat.
Exactly.
You just open the packet. It's so convenient to eat. I can pack it for the kids mid-morning snack or something. Who's going to then, beat the egg and make an omelette out of it? So convenience.
Processed carbs will never make you feel full, by the way.
I mean, just a satisfaction in the mother's head. So many kids carry donuts, cookies, biscuits, cakes for their mid-morning breakfast. And when you give so much of sugar to the child is only having high cortisol and not concentrating in the class, comes back home lethargic, goes off to sleep. So you're just feeding obesity, nothing else.
Exactly.
But again, when you talk about processed carbs and sugars and all of that, do you also concede the fact that by themselves they aren't the problem, right? It's the question of moderation and how frequently you are eating it, right?
No, but you are replacing an opportunity to eat healthy with the unhealthy food. I could have eaten a banana instead of a biscuit packet. Both had carbohydrates.
It's an interesting behavior science point, right? In general, I think one of the biggest mistakes worldwide, and that's not just in India and the West as well, right? The general prevailing wisdom that somehow it's an individual's fault. They must exhibit willpower and eat the right thing. I think is actually the wrong thing to say.
Okay.
Right? Our evolution, our conditioning essentially makes us very, very vulnerable. Like she said, a household worker buying a 5 rupee packet of biscuit, it's convenient, you eat it, you throw it, you're done, you're filled and so on. Egg, I mean, you got to cook. You can't eat a raw egg. I mean, you got to then find a pan, you got to find fuel. I mean, so I think we drastically underestimate the value of changing your environment, food environment.
Yeah.
You can't expect people to change themselves as much as you do. Yes, they do need to change. But I think you got to change the environment, right? For example, in the US, the school lunches are all like processed food.
Yeah.
But in Europe, school lunches, no processed food, no carbonated beverages. You can see the health differences, right? French kids are way more healthier than American kids are, right? And so in a sense, I think it's really about fixing the environment, even at home. Keeping the cookie jar hard to access or not there at all, or don't keep it by your bedside, is a better solution than telling yourself, I will only eat 2 cookies a day. That's very hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
There's a fascinating behavior science study that there's this interesting study that they did of potato chips. Right? Potato chips, classic example of hyper palatable, high sodium, high starch, high fat.
Just had one
very hard to say no.
Very addictive.
And it's hard to stop. Right? And one is that half the people who eat, and you ask them how much they ate, they'll underreport it because you don't even know that you're eating that much, right? So the interesting thing is that they did the study where they replaced every 10th chip with a red color chip. They just use food coloring, right? So every out of the usual yellow color, one is red in color, right? And what they actually found is they found a 30% improvement in people actually reducing their chip consumption. You know why? Because the moment they ran into a red chip, it made them pause and think. Is it, oh, what is this? The very act of pausing gave the brain time to say, oh, you've been eating. It's almost as if when you're eating chips, you didn't even know you were eating. Right? And so that's so in a sense, it's quite crazy. Now the research tells us that it's easier to actually fix the environment than to change your own brain, actually.
Yeah, and you also bring this really interesting distinction between changing your lifestyle versus changing your environment. Because as you said, that if you put it on lifestyle and if you put it on one individual, that almost becomes impossible.
So if you actually, it's a very brilliant example is that Italian restaurants in the US versus Italian restaurants in Italy. There's a fascinating difference. And you know the health difference between how healthy Italians tend to be versus, but you would imagine that they're broadly eating roughly the same kind of food. But there's a fascinating changes, right? When you walk into a restaurant in Italy, you know what's the first thing that comes to the table? It's not bread. It's a salad.
Okay.
Salad. A bowl of salad is what comes and people just start eating the salad, right? If you go to an Olive Garden or one of those restaurants in the US, the first thing that will come is a giant bowl of free bread and olive oil and it's free, it's unlimited, right? And so you see the difference. So you eat all that fiber first. You're automatically going to fill yourself up. The satiety signals will come much sooner. You're eventually going to consume less calories if you eat a salad first, right? So that way, of course, you can tell an individual eat a salad first. But if you create a culture where salad is always served first, that's an easier solution in many cases. Yeah.
Doc, what do you have to say about this?
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very, thoughtful process. And it's not that. If you've seen the Japanese tiffins, they're called the bento tiffins. So they have small portions of everything. And then you see the sushi, which has rice, which is just 1 or 2 portions. Whereas we eat mountains full of rice. So yes, as he said, the salads, the fluids play a very important role because they bulk up in the body, swell up and, give you a good satiety. Plus, if you deliberately make it a point that every meal has to have good protein, be it my sprouts or my chaach, or a cup of dahi, or a dal, or eggs if I'm eating, or chicken or fish, whatever. So I make sure that every meal has it so that my sugar spikes are not very high and my satiety is really good. And which is doable.
So it's a nice metaphor, right? General formula of a burger is carbs, protein, carbs. But in India, Mek Aloo Tikki burger is carbs, and carbs. Okay.
And unhealthy fat.
So it's carbs. And unhealthy fat as well, right? And the point about Japan is actually quite fascinating, right? The bento box. The Japanese high school kid, by the time they graduate from school, they need to learn to cook 4 standard Japanese dishes.
Oh.
So think about that, right? I mean, if you teach people how to cook, I think, more than anything else, it's going to make them conscious about what is healthy, what is not.
And also what goes into their food.
Exactly.
It's not as simple as just opening a packet and eating. You'll know that, okay, aloo gaya, to aloo ka matlab ye hai, rice ka matlab, okay, yeah, interesting.
And soup for our households are those packets which you just empty into and heat it up. And soup is made generally when somebody is sick in the house, which is such a wrong concept.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think a majority of people, especially people our age, actually, are starting to look at food like that, but haven't all this while because, I think we're more or less used to having food on our plates directly without really understanding how each one of these things were made or what do each one of them contain. So I want to ask all of us actually, when you look at a food of plate, what is it that you see? Like, do you see the nutrients that are in each part of your plate, or how should one ideally be looking at their food?
See, look at food as color.
Okay.
So the more colorful your food is, the more nutrients it has. And divide your plate into 4. So half of it should be raw fruits and vegetables, which can either be with the same meal or it can be spaced out as a snack. And the remaining half is 1/4 carbs, which is your roti, chawal, bread, pasta, whatever. And the remaining 1/4 is your protein, which could be your dal or legumes or, chicken, fish, eggs, etc. And a small serving of dairy by the side.
That's it.
Every time we fill a plate, if we just keep it in our mind that let me divide it into 4, so I can never go wrong.
Is it actually that easy?
I'll add a few other things. I think that is probably the absolute basic. If you do those 4 things, actually, by the way, I think that probably fixes like a good chunk of our problems. But I'll add a few other things for young people particularly. Also sort of rate the things on your plate by convenience, right? And people really, really underestimate this, right? Meaning that you've got to hit the sweet spot of, can I make this? Remember that anything you order out, right, has at least 2 to 3 times as many calories as the same dish that you make at home.
Okay.
Right? Because a restaurant version of a dish is delicious because it has just a lot of fat. Okay. Right, so that things are literally swimming in oil, right? So that's generally, you just simply don't realize how much, even if it's not visible, they'll emulsify it so that you don't see it at all, but it'll taste super delicious because it's got so much fat, right? So you've got to be able to balance, you've got to be able to look at this plate and say, yeah, I can sustainably make this, I can sustain this habit economically and in a convenience way, and appropriately as necessary. I should be able to prep, store stuff in the fridge, not believe in all this nonsense about everything has to be cooked from scratch, use the freezer when necessary, use the microwave when necessary. But if it helps me eat whatever that first part, which is that 4 things, then I should use all the other tools of convenience at my hand to make that happen. Short of going to a restaurant and eating, opening a packet and eating.
Yeah.
Right? So that I think is an important element, right? It has to be sustainable. See,
Right.
Everyone likes an absolutely brilliantly, healthily cooked thali or a meal, but it takes a lot of effort to make it. Right? So, like if you're living alone, if you're a young person, not living with your parents and all that, so that becomes an important element.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Krish. You just spoke about how many a times when you order food from outside, the aspect of the appeal is the fact that it's swimming in oil. There is still a large perception where people believe that, no, but healthy food cannot taste as good at the ending of the day.
I think there is, yes, that definitely is an issue. I think we also have to accept the harsh truth that if it's genuinely healthy, it is not going to taste like your butter chicken from the restaurant. It's just not going to, right? I think it's a psychological thing. In many cases, you can build up a sort of this thing by eating healthily, and the fact that it makes you feel good, it makes you feel light, you don't get all the other problems associated with eating ultra fatty, ultra heavy meal. Okay. There's a second aspect also, which is that you also have to remember that the public perception and demand for healthier food will also in the short term result in restaurants and the food industry in general using marketing tricks to fool you without actually meaningfully making changes. You have to be aware of that, right? So this is the whole, our gulab jamuns are made from jaggery. It makes no difference, okay? Right? We use, our desserts are made with honey and ghee and A2 cow ghee and all of that. It is still a dessert, boss.
Correct.
Nothing has changed, okay? So don't think that there is no such thing as a healthy dessert. Unless it's a fruit, okay? So other than that, all desserts are desserts, right?
Even there, moderation, right? Like 1 banana, probably not bad, but a lot of bananas.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, for example,
sugar.
Yeah. So, literally, people saying we use no refined oil, we only use cold press oil, is saying nothing about the amount of fat in the food. Right? In all likelihood, what's going to happen? Really cold press oils, when you really deep fry and heat, you end up losing whatever little benefits you had in them. That's the reason why we use refined oil for high temperature uses and so on, right? So the whole point is that you need to overall reduce, not worry about. So the problem is that people again want to go after the easy fix. Cold press oil is the easy fix, right? Or I will switch away. No sugar. I will add jaggery and honey. You know the number of people who believe that they can give their diabetic parents jaggery and honey because it's not sugar, because it's natural sugar. It's crazy scary.
Does that happen, Doc?
Yes, many a times. Guju families, they are so convinced that, the jaggery in the dal will not definitely contribute to their... Sorry to be very, but it's so difficult to convince them and tell them that, you're already eating a meal. Why do you want to further add to the carbohydrate?
Yeah, and I see this a lot more because people my generation do not think about food like that. They just sort of accept what has been going on in their family for years. So critically thinking about food, it's not like we have all the time in the world to think about what really is in our food, and so we go by what our parents have told us and have believed, and at the end of the day they turn out fine, is what we look at. And it has
But
been
see, all the time we are talking of food. When you have somebody over, or you're going out for, you want to sit in a cafe and have a meeting. You don't go sit by the pool and, have a meeting. So every time we Indians are only talking about food. And since now people don't want to cook, so they order. So it's very convenient. So everything rotates around food for us.
Yeah.
Which is not the case in the Western countries.
And also, I think, part of the reason why I often sometimes focus on when I teach kids and so on, when I talk about food itself, right? Generally food and cooking, is that I largely kind of say that, look, think about the history of mankind and how we evolved.
Yeah.
And you'd find that the large bulk of our evolution was when we were hunter-gatherers. Agriculture is only 10,000 years old. If you're a hunter-gatherer in the colder latitudes, your diet is pretty much entirely meat. At least that's how humans were, right?
Yeah.
And so that is why, we are now at a point where actually you can technically be healthy on multiple kinds of diets. But because human beings have eaten all kinds of diets. But with the exception of the modern, ultra-processed, high-calorie, low-fiber, high-fat kind of diet, which never existed in the past, that's the one diet none of us can deal with. Okay, so that's one, right? So in general, what happens is that during the hunter-gatherer period, in general, the reason why intermittent fasting sometimes works is because we are largely naturally evolved to not eat for long periods.
okay.
And when you eat, you gorge yourself. Our entire sensory apparatus, our brain, our hypothalamus, our tongue, our nose, and everything else is signaling and say, oh, this is high fat. Why do we have taste buds? Right? Our taste buds are to detect sodium, which is salt, are to detect sugars, glucose, fructose, and other things, are to detect fats, are to detect glutamates, which is protein, which is what we call umami and so on, right?
Yeah.
All of these essentially are telling you, eat more of this, eat more of this, eat more of this, right? Eat as much as you can, put on, become fat. It is actually a good thing for a hunter-gatherer.
Because you might not get it for some time.
You don't know. Yeah, sometimes they might have to hibernate months and so on, right? So the problem is that entire environment is what our bodies are designed for. And in such a short amount of time, we've moved to a hyper-palatable, calories being super cheap kind of a environment. And in a country like India, that change has happened in a generation.
Yeah.
Right? So my parents' generation didn't have 20 varieties of chips to buy. Okay.
And then you sit down, no? When you eat a heavy meal, you sit for longer, so food ferments in the stomach, you feel even more bloated, or you like to take a good afternoon nap after your heavy lunch.
Exactly.
So,
right. I mean, as they say, you're supposed to sort of, at least at dinner, you're supposed to a few hours after dinner, you're not supposed to sleep. But people literally will eat a late night heavy snack, tub of ice cream, and then go to sleep, right?
So what I can gather from our conversation that we've had till now is, number one, certain foods, not certain foods I would say, but certain kinds of processes are definitely worth avoiding as much as possible, like your highly processed carbs and fats and sugary stuff, sugary drinks. But even then, they are not the villains of the puzzle, right? It's all about how you broach that thing. If you're having it once every 6 months or a month, it might not be as bad for you, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
How do you come to that number, as in, okay, this is how many times I can have it?
And is there a number, first of all? Yeah.
Or is it just a trial and error, just being like,
I think it's a personal question for Anjali because she wants that number.
I want a number.
see, basically, your body can handle some amount of toxins. Anything which is synthetic is a toxin for the liver and the kidney. Now, when you overdo it, like you have a packaged soup and you have everything in the due course of the day, everything which has some or the other amount of additives, colors, preservatives, so your body reaches that threshold of toxins. Now, when you do it infrequently, your body is able to manage those toxins. And also the cooking method, we've not touched upon it.
Okay.
We have celebrities coming and advertising on, air fryers and artificial sweeteners. These are all synthetic. Air fryers are one of the greatest feeders for the oncology or the cancer specialty. Because, the composition of the food undergoes a lot of change. You have something which is called advanced glycation end products. So this leads to quick aging, quick onset of diabetes, number one problem of cardiac issues.
Chris, you had a video about air fryers, right?
So I think, see, air fryers in general, see, the part of what the doctors are speaking about is the fact that if you're eating air fried food 3 times a day, that's actually quite terrible for you.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't, right? I think the distinction was around saying that if you're someone who is making one air fried potato chips, French fries, right? Once a week or something, at that point you can actually say it's a benefit because, deep frying is actually going to add more oil.
So I think what needs to be done is to understand how a particular cooking method, or if it's an ingredient, what does it contain, how does it work, what does it do to my body, and then decide if you want to make peace with, okay, this is what it'll do, but I think my body can manage it this one time, and so this is not how many times I should be doing it eventually.
Yes, exactly. And I while it might seem like a lot, right, so you have to remember that unfortunately another hard truth is that there's a certain level of deliciousness that comes in only at high temperature, but it comes at a cost. As the doctor says, your kidney and liver will deal with it in moderation. But the problem again is that it's really impossible to say what may be moderation for someone may not be moderation for someone, because we're all genetically very, very different.
So how do we know what your level is? Because we need to find a balance between enjoying all of these things and also being chill about our food and not be really, hyper ki har ek cheez hum calories measure karke kha rahe ho. So what's that, how do you find for yourself? Let's not ask for a ballpark figure.
I wish I could give you some new age sort of woo-woo advice, like listen to your body and all of that. But honestly, I'll let the doctor talk. She did speak about the fact that it is important to get tested.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, you listen to your body, but your body speaks a different language. So you go to people who understand that language.
Yes, who can interpret that. Yes, exactly. So you go to Dr. Priyanka. Yes.
So to give a precise number, your body can actually handle 1,500 kilojoules of AGE. Now that's a very scientific jargon. And to just give you a context to it, if you eat one tandoori chicken, this is 300 kilojoules. See, if you had an observation in the first wave of COVID, we had all elderly who were impacted because age-related immunity compromise was there. Second wave, we had all the youngsters eating at home cooked food, which was like moong ki dal ka halwa. So many people became bakers at home and everybody was making dahi bhallas and and the sale of what all items went up. It was basically ready to eat noodles, packet of chips, cold drinks. So you made that impact on your health, and so your body indicates. It's not that when you add an inch on your waist, you don't know.
Since we're talking about moderation and we've discussed moderation, and also just like I think somewhere accepting the fact that processed food also has made its place in our everyday lives and it's not going to leave anytime soon. But I have a question. What do you guys think about the concept of cheat days or cheat meals?
Before Chris and Priyanka can, expand upon it, I would say that how I look at it is it's again assigning virtues and values to food items, right? So that would again be the whole, जो starting में हमने alarmism की बात करी थी, I think a lot of that comes from that, right? You guys can...
I think, so one is that I'll answer from a behavior science standpoint, and then Dr. Priyanka can sort of address the clinical medical side of it. So the behavior science of this is that not everyone is the same when it comes to how you think about your reward and your gratification system. Like you do know in society that some people are actually more susceptible to, say, becoming an alcoholic addict, purely psychologically speaking, right?
Yeah.
So people come in a spectrum. So I would actually say the problem is that a cheat day is not a universal solution to this problem.
Just like anything else.
Right. So what happens is that for some people, they'll end up just going berserk on that cheat day. Your cells and all the rest of your body functions as if it was any other day, right? And if you assault it on that day, it's going to have consequences, right? So every time you eat, there are consequences. Unfortunately, that's the truth, right? So, but the point is, it's really about, are you a person who can delay gratification and still be reasonably sane about what you eat on that cheat day, right? Versus someone who recognizes that, no, I don't think I can sort of do that. I would rather sort of look at my entire day, look at my meals, and then have small pieces of things that I enjoy as part of otherwise healthy meal may be a better strategy for some people.
Yeah, like dividing that unhealthiness over little time than just picking one whole day where you fill it with unhealthy items.
Exactly. Yeah, instead of a full brownie and so on, you're going to have like a small quarter portion, maybe along with your lunch or something like that, right?
Okay, so I would like to address the question that, we always correlate food as a reward mechanism, which is wrong.
Interesting.
If your exams are over, you get an ice cream, or if you've done well, we go out for a pizza outing or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the wrong notion we as parents are putting into our children's mind. So food should never be a reward mechanism. And as a mother of 2 boys, one teenager and one getting into the teenage, it's very difficult to tell them that we have one day as the cheat day, and there are days when the tiffin box just comes back like that. So to avoid that, there are ways as a mother I cheat the children by putting maybe one Oreo biscuit with a bunch of nuts together with a lot of fruits. If I have to pack French fries, I would add a little bit of cucumber sticks, carrot sticks, and make a hunker dip by the side. So the look and feel looks nice, but at the same time, the child is not really eating what is so unhealthy. So this is the cheat from a mother's side, but it is not really making the child feel that, they are deprived of something.
Since we're talking about like these different sleep cycles we discussed a while back, and just the kind of lifestyle that a young person in our country currently leads is, I would say, different than what it was the generation before us. We have definitely started staying up much later. The timings that we pick to eat food have also changed. So should we also be changing what we eat in those timings? Since now it is pretty much, there's very little we can do to change our lifestyles. Of course, we can start sleeping early, but sometimes the work schedule is such that we cannot. So
my breakfast is my family's lunch.
Yeah, so is changing our food to fit our lifestyle a good approach, or should it always be the other way around?
You have to be flexible, number one, but your body has not changed. Though the generations and the sleep cycle has changed, still morning 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. is your cortisol release in the body. So if you're sleeping, you are making more fat. It's a fat forming hormone. And if you do some kind of activity, you get the maximum benefit because endorphin levels are high. Now, these jargons, a regular teenager or a college going girl or a boy would not understand. They're happy being up, till 12 midnight, trying to munch on something. So to some extent, if we can bring the sleep cycle as close to 10 to 6, timings, maybe half an hour here and there or 1 hour here and there. And if they have to munch on, the first thing should be hydration. So it could be nimbu pani, nariyal pani, it could be buttermilk, some fresh homemade soup or infused water. So that most of the times this hydration is not confused to be, hunger. And then things like a handful of nuts, chickpeas, or, you could have some makhanas, you could have a seed mix, you could have some fruit to munch on, which is just kept on the dining table right there instead of a packet of cookies or chocolates readily available for the child. Never stock a lot of unhealthy food. Your fridge should never be filled with a lot of ice creams because then we will all reach out to it.
I sincerely wish, I know it's probably a huge drain of your productive time, but I do wish more qualified doctors such as yourself actually become social media influencers in a sense. And I genuinely hope, I think more than anything else, I think there's an onus on the social media platforms themselves to amplify you, right? That's the problem, right? You shouldn't have to work hard and do what influencers do to gain followers, right? In the sense that scientifically verifiable health information should not have to compete with people saying random nonsense, right? In an ideal world. And I will only add one last thing to what Dr. Priyanka said, which is to all young people, is to learn to cook. It's the one single skill. If it's correlated with long-term good health, it's your ability to cook food. Because home-cooked food, no matter how terrible you are, is going to be orders of magnitude healthier than whatever it is you order in any restaurant. Even the greatest health food restaurant ultimately will have the commercial pressure to deliver food that is delicious, and delicious food, unfortunately, is just high fat. That's high salt. It's just the way it is. So, yeah, and I'll just say learn to cook.
Interesting. Nice.
I mostly call up my mother for recipes, but I also have like a fair share of Instagram recipes that I try on every once in a while. So, is Instagram a good place to learn cooking, or should I always be looking somewhere else?
Dude, his Instagram is, I would say.
So, in fact, part of my, in fact, one of the premise of my book, Masala Lab, was essentially no recipes, only algorithms, right? So rather than sit and figure out recipes, a dal basically is a template which there is a base fat and some spices, there's some flavoring, and then you add the cooked dal, and then you add a garnish and salt and squeeze acid, right? So this template you can use to make sambar, you can use to make Gujarati dal, you can use to make Bengali dal by just altering the fat, altering the spices, altering the kind of dal you use. So I think in general, I think it's always better to learn the broader heuristics of dishes rather than individual dishes, and then you experiment in your kitchen based on what you have. Otherwise, the other thing that happens, no? So you'll find a recipe and then you'll go buy 10 spice dabbas, all of which will be rotting in your fridge because you'll use a tiny amount. Right? And so I think you should have the mental muscle to say, whatever is in my fridge, fresh ingredients that I can use right now, that's what I bake. Otherwise, you'll go buy something, you'll waste it, and that's not really great either. So I think from a sustainability standpoint, it's often better to remember algorithms rather than recipes.
And we don't need very fancy ingredients like kiwi and broccoli and
exactly.
A lot of tasty food can be made from the regular local stuff that's available with us.
Yep.
We don't need our quinoas and everything on a daily basis.
I actually wore one of these continuous glucose monitors for about 6 months to kind of really understand how food affects me and so on. For me, I found that there's actually little difference between any of the millets, quinoa and rice and wheat. Not much difference at all. You know what made a big difference? The amount that I had. 1 chapati versus 2 chapati is a much bigger difference than having quinoa chapati, some buckwheat chapati versus, regular chapati. Again, it may vary by person, but in general, I think, people put way too much, people feel like when they're spending more money, they need to get that much more health. That's just not how it works.
Okay, now just to conclude, we have some, rapid fire questions because these days nothing can end without a rapid fire. We are going to throw some commonly heard myths and, some understanding, some things that we have heard. And you guys are like the authority and you have to say whether they are true, fully true, not true.
I feel like a lot of these answers are going to be in moderation.
In moderation, depends on the person, context. I think, that's the nichode of this chat, I would say. Kriti, do you have something in mind?
Yeah, I think every medical opinion on the internet is viable in terms of what you eat.
No.
Absolutely not. It depends. As I said, no. So one is individual studies. Second thing is the quality of the study, whether it's really been cited by others, and then whether it's a meta study or not, whether the study was on rats, the sample size. Sometimes the study is not on people who are of Indian origin. So many things can make one isolated study relevant or completely irrelevant. So I don't think you should go by that at all. And the problem is that sometimes how a study is reported is that the authors may have actually said something else with a ton of caveats, but the headline will be this cures cancer. Okay, that's not how it works. Yeah.
Okay, I have something which has come from like personal pain point. You shouldn't eat food after 6 p.m. or you shouldn't eat carbs after 6 p.m.
The lesser the better, and the wholesome the better.
Okay, what do you mean by wholesome?
Wholesome as in whole grains rather than eating a maida bread. Try and add your proteins and fiber in the form of fruits, vegetables. So have a wholesome meal. Even if you want to have a salad for dinner, I wouldn't say just have a salad with only vegetables in it. You could put in some bread croutons into it. You could put in some ublava chana or rajma into it. So, make it more wholesome. Even broken wheat when steamed and added to a salad is very tasty. Or add a toast by the side. Make your dish more wholesome. And
but the timing
is important because body's basal metabolic rate slows down as we you are arriving at your retiring time for the day. So if you have to sleep by 11 o'clock, 2 to 3 hours prior, you should finish your eating so that the digestion is over by the time you hit the bed.
This is so much more nuanced than don't eat after 6 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Anjali.
I have another one. Is non-vegetarian protein better than vegetarian protein?
This you are, I feel personally attacked by everyone who's asking me to convert to non-vegetarian.
Not really.
It's not like that, yeah.
Of late, we are seeing a lot of people with pea protein and, getting the best of health. I don't say turn vegan, but I wouldn't say that if you are not a non-vegetarian, you are missing out something major in your life.
I think that's the right way to look at it. I think it's perfectly possible to be completely healthy on a vegetarian diet. I would say, as the doctor says, it's a little bit trickier on a purely vegan diet. In that, I think you have to be privileged and rich enough to pay amount of attention to whether you're getting all of the
urban city that has.
No, you do need supplements. You do need to make sure that you're getting all of the amino acids. Yeah, correct. No, not just vitamin B12, just all of the amino acids and proteins, right? So, but if you're vegetarian, I think you can be perfectly healthy on a diet that includes dairy. And in some cases, I think if you consider eggs to be vegetarian, which at least I do, so that again, really eggs are some of the highest quality protein out there, right? I mean,
I'm just going to cut this part and forward it to all my WhatsApp groups.
So if you look at the international protein quality ranking, right? So egg is 100 and then everything else is ranked below that, right? So that's how it works. Processed red meats are among the worst things you can eat. This is like sausages and ham. And so net, I think it's really just about you can be healthy on any kind of diet, right? So there's no such thing. Right. So in a sense, it's possible
in moderation.
Exactly.
And with a good lifestyle coverage of keeping all other parameters in mind.
Yeah. Right. But if you're so for example, like for my wife is Malayali, and as far as she's concerned, it's not a meal unless there's a piece of fish, right? And so in some sense, from a convenience standpoint, it takes away the worry about whether you're getting enough protein. Whereas a vegetarian has to consciously make sure, yes, am I getting enough dal? Am I getting enough that? Am I also making sure that I'm augmenting it with some dairy? Because dairy is animal protein, so it's going to have all of the essential amino acids. So there's a little bit of that, but otherwise, I think if you're mindful about what you eat, I think it doesn't really make a difference. And as I said, vegetarian Indian cuisine is one of the great marvels of the world because it is its own thing, meaning that these are not vegetarian versions of non-veg dishes, as it is in the rest of the world.
Anything.
It's a completely uniquely rich vegetarian cuisine that, like, for example, using paneer or using many of these other ingredients now, you can actually have a pretty rich, a perfectly balanced
protein-rich diet.
Protein-rich diet. And also being mindful about things like, 70% of the calories in paneer come from fat, not from protein. So you have to be mindful of some of these things. So you have to balance it, right? You can't just say, paneer is 100%.
All
you can't have
calories
these
aren't the same.
They're not the same, right? But on the other hand, if you're eating like fish or chicken, it's reasonably pretty much entirely protein, right? Dal is like 50% carbohydrates, but really good resistant starch, right? But you have to be mindful of those kinds of things.
So you should be able to look at your plate and recognize what is in each one of these things.
And know what contains what, yes.
And that will come from cooking.
Yes.
That will come from actually cooking, yes.
Yeah.
Cooking and your protein will be fully utilized if you are doing some muscle strengthening. Surya Namaskar is one of the very good exercise.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. It's so cool that we started from food and then now we are talking about health, essentially. And health and lifestyle and culture, all of these things are so connected. Nice, interesting. Thanks a lot. If you guys have any parting words for us, for our listeners.
I mean, I've already said it. I think learn to cook, pay attention to where your food comes from, right? Understand what does what, where things come from, and what the macronutrient balance is. Make sure that you exercise. Remember that exercise alone is not going to, if weight loss is your goal, exercise alone is not going to cut it. You have to also reduce the amount of food you eat. And also don't overthink it. It's easier to the safest thing to do is often eat what your grandparents ate. But also eat them in far more moderation than they did. Eat a wide variety of things. Don't believe in the idea of superfoods. One single magic ingredient, one single amazing foreign ingredient, kale and broccoli and quinoa and acai berries and so on. No, so, skip all of that. You don't. So you can only eat as healthy as convenient as food is for you to cook and bake, right? If it's inconvenient and expensive, you would never be able to meet your goals. So that's all I have to say.
Your food has to give you a positive mindset. That's very important. So have a positive association with your food, not a reward mechanism. And choose things which, your gut actually tells you are good for you. So eat right to stay bright.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for this chat.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
That is great advice. Thanks, Kriti. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. So Anjali, let us start with kya lag raha hai? Okay. Let's start with right after this, what are you going to have? And more importantly, what are you going to not have for your lunch?
यार ऐसा है कि dinner तो थोड़ा out of control है आज. Because this is my one day where I'm going out. But I think I'm pretty sure that the next time that I'm looking at a plate of food, it might not be the healthiest. पहली बता रही हूँ, mummy, please. It might not be the healthiest. But I am pretty sure I'll be more mindful of what is on it and what is in it.
In it, yes, interesting. यार मेरे साथ तो पता है इतना weird चीज हो रही है because you and Kriti, you guys overwork me and work me so much. मेरे को लंच खाने का भी टाइम नहीं मिला था.
Okay,
तो
sure.
मैंने सोचा कि मैं
ये हमारे बॉस कह रहे.
मैंने सोचा कि एपिसोड रिकॉर्ड करके आराम से ऑर्डर कर लूंगा, ऐसा मैंने सोचा ही था. एंड विद एवरी पासिंग मिनट ऑफ द कॉन्वर्सेशन आई एम लाइक नहीं यार नहीं, खाना बना लेते हैं. व्हेन क्रिश वाज लाइक you should cook, I was like oh man, why did you say this यार, थोड़ा तो अंदर का ज़मीर बाकी रहने देते. But I think I really liked the thoda hatke thinking that this episode got us into, where Krish, he actually talked about the importance of something as basic as cooking your own food.
Yeah, and which is a little overlooked, and I also I mean, he has brought it up and emphasized it, but I feel that it is whenever you're building a regime or whenever you're building a diet, बहुत important होता है to make sure that it's sustainable. It is something that you can continue doing. वरना fat diets तो थोड़े time तक सभी कर सकते हैं. But of course they are not sustainable.
As Kriti has told us already. I really like that कि cooking का importance पे बात करी, because it wasn't a very general talk of ये करना चाहिए ये नहीं करना चाहिए, जो कि बहुत हो गया यार. मतलब I am really confused at this point कि ये मत करो ये करो ये मत करो. But the whole point about critical thinking, the whole point when Chris mentioned कि यार but it worked for me is the worst excuse ever, because that's so anti-science.
Correct.
So it's like, and when then Priyanka mentioned that all of these diets and all, ये हम लोग की bodies पे experiment करने वाली चीज नहीं है.
हाँ.
We are not guinea pigs कि हम अपनी body पे diets experiment करेंगे. Go to a professional. She actually talked about the importance of screening. Correct. Early and in time, and let them talk about
tell
your body
you
and
what
also
will work for your body. Correct.
Yeah. I also like the fact that we discussed कि हम बोलते रहते listen to our bodies, all of that, but actually our body speaks a different language. तो हम सुन सकते हैं but समझ में ही नहीं आएगी, तो फिर वो सुनने का क्या फायदा. So that's why people like Krish, people like Priyanka and all other people who are doing great work in the streams of nutrition and health, we should make them superstars, make them social media stars, so that they can tell us what is happening with our bodies. And that's, I think, our attempt as well with this episode, I would
Correct.
say.
Yeah.
Yes, nice.
But मतलब overall ये थोड़ा conclusion types भी है कि थोड़ा chill करो.
हाँ.
इतना obsess करके, मतलब तुम्हारे खाने में 100 ग्राम थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया, 20 ग्राम प्रोटीन इधर उधर is not going to make that bigger difference, really.
Yeah, and I think that is the best way to think about nutrition in general, because as Chris had said, it's not a settled science. So it will be very hard for there to be like a authority, and at least एक number तो अभी नहीं डाल सकते यार किसी भी चीज़ पे when it comes to nutrition. So it's your body and it's a relationship between your body and your food, which I think करेंगे explore धीरे धीरे, but again घबराने की बात नहीं है. बेसिकली इस पूरे कॉन्वर्सेशन का सार मुझे लगता है ये निकला. Again, I want to thank our guests Krish and Dr. Priyanka and Kriti for sharing their time with us. This was The Big Story.
We are your hosts Anjali and Pratik, and we will see you in the next episode.
जाने से पहले मेरी एक शिकायत है तुम लोगों से दोस्तों, everybody who is listening to this podcast. You guys are not commenting, you guys are not following us on Spotify and YouTube and all the other places. हम क्रिश और डॉक्टर प्रियंका जैसे लोगों से इतनी बढ़िया बातें कर रहे हैं ताकि हमारा और हमारे लिसनर्स का, तुम लोगों का थोड़ा वो अपग्रेड हो. क्या अपग्रेड हो अंजलि? वो अपग्रेड हो थोड़ा. फॉलो अस गाइस, कमेंट्स में हमें बताओ कि हमारे अगले एपिसोड में हमारे गेस्ट के लिए क्या क्वेश्चंस होने चाहिए. व्हाट मिथ्स एंड व्हाट आइडियाज डिड यू हैव अबाउट फूड दैट probably got changed during the course of this episode, and just have a connection with us, dude, because we are your two favorite pals from the internet and we would love to check out what you have for us. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.
The Big Story is a Quint original podcast, executive produced by Ritu Kapoor and Shali Walia. This episode was hosted and produced by Anjali Palod and Pratik Ledu, edited by Pratik Ledu. The background music is from VMG Production, and a special thanks to our guests Krish Ashok, Dr. Priyanka and Kriti.
You were listening to the Quint Podcast.